Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Voices in Hyperspace. We got the whole crew together. Nita has returned from her away mission, her super secret away mission. She's like a secret agent. We'll dig into a little bit of that probably at the end of the episode. But we're going to get started with this one. I am Legendary Black Lion.
I'm El Asylum.
Nita, the painter.
Hi, this is Sunday.
All right, so this episode, we are looking at Babylon 5, Season 1, Episode 13, Signs and Portents. This one, this is another set the stage episode, which is crazy because Season 1 has been doing a lot of universe building. And this one finally allows Season 1 to start stretching his arms and legs out because it is setting up the rest of the series. Oh my goodness. It's like, if you know what's going to happen, then this episode kind of gets your heart racing a little bit. Let's start with the first timer. So Nita, what are your initial thoughts on this episode?
Let me remember. So the eye is the greatest symbol of authority to the Centauri.
Yes.
And I'm just I kind of not fantasize, but like, what is the word? Just kind of like
Imagine.
Just a little light imagining of like the symbols of power that we have in America and how they mean so much to people. And I just is like, oh, people are about to die over a symbol again. Here we go.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, but you're pointing out something very central to imperialism. They always defer to cultural narratives, right? Idealized cultural narratives and the idealized past. The symbol justifies the power, and that's why what's his name, Lord Kiro was so sentimental when it came to like being around the eye.
That whole theme of what does someone want, along with the mysteriousness of the character who was asking. And not to mention like how everyone was so hostile when they were asked, what do you want? What you want? It's like, that's a hard subject for someone whose responsibility is their whole world, their home world, their whole world. It seemed like it might go somewhere. Like you said, it's setting the scene for something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I felt it was quite troublesome that the ambassadors of the entire world that are on a starship that is supposed to be fostering peace and all the things, that these are the things you want. You want to murder, death, and kill the opposition so that you can be the great one. That doesn't sound like the speaking of a higher self that's looking for unity and peace to me.
Well, that's the thing, right? The Centauri, they really are not about peace. Ambassador Malari, he's on Babylon 5 to try to find like leverage, right? He's trying to gain power for himself, for the Centauri Republic, right? And throughout the season so far, you've seen the way that he interacts and behaves with the other characters. He's always trying to find his leg up, but he hates it. It's like he hates his job. He hates it because he sees himself as not having power. And in this episode, we find out like, yeah, what he wants is he not only does he want power, but he wants the Centauri to be back into like their seat of power in the whole galaxy. They want to control everything.
Which is kind of weird because they mentioned that it was like over 100 years ago that the Centauri lost power over the Narn, and that the good old days was the time where they owned owned most of the galaxy, And if the Narn had gotten their freedom around 100 years ago, how long ago was the good old days? Did he actually live them? Is that just something that they're holding on to that's irrelevant right now? But it's their culture to conquer, and they're like still trying to get back into conquering stuff.
Yeah.
For what reason? Other than nostalgia of a time that you didn't live through.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I was about to say.
People always talking about the good old days when men were men and women were women and you could smack people and not go to jail and people weren't soft. And it's like, no, humans have been roughly the same for about the past 100,000 years. We are in a position, we're in a place now where we can start thinking about our internal selves a lot more. And that's actually a good thing. And there are some changes that we should probably be making. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump on that soapbox just yet. So let's start off with something really interesting. So the episode begins with Commander Sinclair talking to Garibaldi, talking about like, hey, I'm going to investigate this thing that happened to me. I'm gonna need your help. I thought that was kind of interesting because when was it? It was 2 episodes ago where he started to remember that he was on the Minbari ship during the Battle of the Line. That portion of his memory that was erased. He remembers seeing Ambassador Delenn on the ship, and remember we said she's on Babylon 5 to watch him. And she was given orders that if he ever regains his memory, she has to kill him. So all that time we're saying something's up with Ambassador Delenn, something's up with Ambassador Delenn. Now we know part of what's up with her. She's a member of the Great Council. She's watching Ambassador Sinclair, and she has, granted, it depends on, we haven't heard much about her seriousness about carrying out these orders, but she has a standing order to murder him if he learns the truth. So she's been lying to him and everyone for quite a while. Also, remember, she's been missing for a couple of episodes, and she just suddenly shows back up in this one.
She didn't have much of a role in this one either.
Not really, but what happens with her does help move the story, and we'll get to that. There's another storyline that's going on. There are raiders that are hitting cargo ships.
Yeah, it was interesting how the call in to Babylon is what people do. They're in distress, but it didn't seem like they were really equipped to help. And that was really troubling.
Yeah, these distress calls kept coming into the station. It was upsetting to Ivanova, which she was barely in the episode too, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Like what? She was in 1 scene, 2 scenes.
She didn't want to wake up.
They need to get her. I don't know. They don't have like the fake sunrise.
Sleeping is not
the only one struggling with living in space and no sun.
right. Like you could.
Circadian rhythms. I'm sorry, Mel. Go ahead.
Why doesn't the alarm turn on the lights? I guess they could imagine that in the 90s. But like we have that now. Like we have smart stuff that you can connect things to, and your alarm turns on your lights for you, or you can set your lights to come on at a certain time.
Yeah.
So
we have a smart light in the bathroom, and it's also motion controlled. So it only comes on when you go into the bathroom, right? But I have it set to where at a certain time in the morning, it goes from the green color that we normally have, which is very soothing and relaxing, to white, which is definitely going to wake you up if you walk to the bathroom. Sunday, how would you feel if we put a smart light in our bedroom that would come on at 5 in the morning when your alarm comes on?
Like, for making a suggestion, you want to fight? I mean, you could just say so.
It'll definitely get you up out of bed.
It would not. It would get us into a fight.
And then you would be awake. You would be awake with so much energy.
I
I
don't
need
need
that
that
for
kind of assistance. Thank you.
I need that for engineering.
Yeah.
So he can get up and get ready and I don't have to like get him up because he'll get up and get ready as soon as I get him up or as soon as he gets up. But that means I need to go in there and get him up. And sometimes that's not really necessary for me.
Gotcha.
Or I'm not ready to do that. But I also like want him to be as independent as possible. So
Yeah, I
Nita.
don't have a problem waking up, and I never had a sweet mom to, you know, come and do the snuggle wake ups. It was like if your ass ain't on that bus stop, you in trouble, trouble.
Yeah. So we also see a discussion between Ambassador Malari and some guy. He's like some broker of some sort, right? He's delivering the eye to Londo and Lord. No, he's delivering the eye to Londo, which the eye is it's an artifact from Centauri history. If I'm remembering it correctly, it basically is basically a symbol of the Empire's power, and him and Lord Kiro are going to deliver it to the Emperor. And there's a little twist to this in that Lord Kiro, his family is connected to the eye. It was an heirloom that was connected to his family for a long time, and he's going to be the one to give it to the Emperor. He sounds like he has like some sour feelings about that.
Trying to be the boss himself.
Yeah.
He wants all the powers, wants it for mine.
mm-hmm. It's like it belongs to my family. Why should I give it to the emperor?
Is that what did oh god, I'm about to say it, but we'll say it anyway. It's that Game of Thrones, right? It's that game that the Centauri play. They're all lobbying for as much power as possible to get as close to the emperor as possible or get as much leverage as possible for their power.
So they can lob his head off.
I still think it's very I mean, I know we've seen stories about empires in space. but but I do think it's like it's really strange that there are still empires in space. But I think that kind of goes along with what the Centauri are supposed to signify in this story. But so Lord Kiro, he's with his wife Ladira. She is a prophetess, which she can see. I guess that's where the episode title comes from. She can see signs and portents. She gets like these visions of things. Of course, I have to say this. This is a situation where they have a woman character who is right. She has special powers, and everyone just kind of disregards her. Lord Kiro is like, yeah, she keeps saying I'm gonna be killed by shadows. Like how accurate can her predictions be, right? Then we have the introduction of a character that is going to be very interesting for the rest of the series, Mr. Morden. So in the background of a lot of these scenes, Mr. Morden is just kind of skulking around. He's observing the different characters, and he finds himself meeting with many of them, and he's asking them a specific question. He's asking them, what do you want? Watching this now as an adult, Mr. Morden reminds me of Zachary Quinto. Y'all know who that is?
No.
He played Spock in the Kelvin universe movies, like with
okay.
Chris Pine and
Okay.
yeah. Doesn't he remind? Well, he reminds me of Zachary Quinto.
Okay.
And I'm thinking like, hey, if they actually which they are making a Babylon 5 remake, it would be cool to have Zachary Quinto, but he's gonna be too expensive. But he's done TV before, but that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Oh yeah,
So,
he's in Heroes, right?
yep, yep, he was one of the
Eating
main
people.
villains for season one. Yeah, Sylar, and then he just took over that show.
Mm.
He was pretty awesome though.
No, I thought that he was, I don't know, a part of something secretive that was going to take the wants of the people and some kind of way be like, oh, you think you want this thing? And then when you get it, you be sorry for it. Or maybe there's like some kind of like power that he possesses. I mean, he's not an alien, so I don't know how realistic that is, but I don't know. He just had something up his sleeve, and I wasn't not so sure about him.
When I first saw him, I was like, "Who is this guy? Kind of creepy." I was cleaning up my crafts towards the beginning, so I was confused about him. Like, so what do you want when he met with Jakar? And
Yeah.
I was trying to fill in the blanks, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe um he Jakar went to meet with him and he's trying to make a deal because Jakar is like this evil person in my mind. Um, but then the next time he went to, was it Delenn was the second person? Um,
Yeah.
and then asked again. I'm like, oh no, he's taking a survey. And then lady was like, oh, the shadows are gonna come get you. And I'm like, oh, that's the shadow that's gonna come get him. You know, that's your shadow man. And you know how like from Princess and the Frog, the shadow man, you make a deal with him with the friends from the other side, and then later on,
Hmm.
Oh.
here's here's a gift from friends you didn't know you had. I'm like, that's the
Yeah.
shadow man. So that's
Yeah.
what I got.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
thinking he fits that character of the trickster, like Anansi or Loki or something. Like I'm gonna be charming and stuff, but I got something up my sleeve.
Yeah.
It's very suspicious. His charming is suspicious. And then I also noticed that when he went to all four of the ambassadors, but one of them he did not ask the question
Yep.
because he was just like, "Why are you here? You need to go."
Yeah.
Like they acquainted, and y'all both up to something.
Yeah. So, Mr. Morden, he went to see Jakar, went to see Londo, went to see Delin, and went to see Ambassador Kosh. And I'm sorry, so this is a detail that I'm trying to remember because I've seen this whole series. Isn't there someone who points out like you? I think it was Delin. She goes like, "You've been talking to everybody. You've been asking this question to everybody, right?"
Mm. What in this
So,
episode?
yeah,
No,
who was it?
Still in, like,
I thought it was Delin.
because she knew that he had already gone to somebody else and asked that
Okay,
question
okay,
for some reason. How she knew, I don't know.
because Delin be in every look. She has that whole station under surveillance. I'm telling you.
They weren't in his quarters. I thought
No.
they were in his quarters. Okay,
Oh, you mean Jakar's quarters?
yeah.
Yeah, he was straight up in Jakar's quarters. Jakar comes back to his quarters, and Morden is just there. He's
But but she somehow knows about it.
yes, that's what I'm saying. She knows. She knows way too. Like Dylan is a security risk. Basically, that's what I'm trying to get at. So the conversation with Jakar, for Nita, I want to get your thoughts on that first, and then we'll go to Sunday. So when Jakar is talking to Morden, and he finally answers the question, what are your thoughts on his answer?
um, I didn't know that his alien species like ate other people. Unless he was just exaggerating about sucking the marrow from bones and grinding skulls into dust. But I really appreciated the candor at the end when when Boy was like, and then what? And Jakar was like, Yeah. And it really made me wonder about like my own goals and my own desires. Like, okay, when I get the things that I want, and then what? Um, and then I had to bring myself back. I was like, oh wait, we're watching a movie
Yeah.
about Nita this time. But I did find it very like interesting, and I do want to interrogate my own desires.
Mm, okay. What about you, Sunday?
I don't have anything as deep that I was. I thought he was um, experiencing, just some trauma from the way his people have been treated, and he's in a position to potentially like elevate them. Um, and to have somebody ask him what his desires are, he's like basically wanting revenge, you know, for his
Yeah.
people. Mm.
Yeah, he basically, and he even says it, I want justice. And Morden kept pushing. It was like, what do you want? He's like, look, I want, basically, he wants to see the Centauri murdered. I think he was exaggerating as far as like sucking the marrow from their bone. But then again, in most episodes so far, we've seen Jakar with some sort of food in his hands. And he probably would eat a Centauri if he was given the opportunity. So there's that. But yeah, he kind of deflates. He's like, after I get, he said, after our people are safe, I pretty much think it doesn't matter what I want. And I thought that was interesting because throughout the whole season so far, he's been trying to gather resources and leverage and like some sort of advantage for the Narn, but he really isn't trying to gather power for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the power that he's trying to gather for himself is more for so he can do things for Narn or do things against the Centauri. But other than that, it's just kind of like whatever, And he's been consistent. Like it's hard to say that he's self-centered and self-interested. He really isn't. And we'll begin to see more of this change or this development in Jakar as the seasons go forward. I also want to make this. I want to make this quick observation about this episode. The last couple of episodes, you could say that they were kind of filler episodes. You learn things about the characters, but the story really doesn't go anywhere. The last episode, Any Means Necessary, it was basically a workers' riot, a labor riot on the station, and you got to see bits and pieces of how the politics work in Babylon 5, and they have the Rush Act, but nothing really happened. The episode before that, I can't remember the name of it, but it was when Sinclair remembers what was it, War Prayer, when he remembers bits and pieces about what happened to him during the Battle of the Line. You have these episodes, they're revealing the characters, but the plot is not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I've seen online people call those filler episodes, and I think Mel, you even called it filler episodes.
No.
And
Was I?
you called one up. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Survivors.
It was one with the lovers that came in and.
Yep, that one. That one too. Like a lot, a lot of these are filler episodes, but this
I think I took it back later.
Yeah.
Because even though it's a side story and it doesn't really go into the main story, eventually, the longer we talk, the more it was setting the scene for like the undertones for things. Like, because the character development is just as important as the main story, because the characters are what drive the story. It's their actions. The story is
Yeah.
their actions. So learning those little bits of his motivation and his culture and why he believes this about his culture means that in the future, when something like this comes up, there's no Deus Ex Machina.
Right. Okay. I
Yeah,
understand. Yep.
they were planting little
Which,
seeds.
yeah.
Uh,
Which you use that term and a very specific scene popped in my head. I'm not gonna say anything about it, but it is important. You get to see a there's a scene later in the season where Drakkar makes a very drastic turn towards the character he will soon become. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. Little breadcrumbs, little teasers. Okay. So so Morden leaves Jakar, and you do see him encounter Delin. I thought that the encounter with Delin, which okay, let me go ahead and say this: we're already suspicious of Delin, right?
yeah.
We're already we're already suspicious. No. Okay, I think I'm going a little too fast. That's okay. So he speaks to Londo. The Londo conversation was interesting.
In front of the elevator. That was
Yeah,
funny to me. I liked
yeah,
how
The little fight they had.
the extra jumped onto the elevator real fast and shut the door.
yep. Well, whatever order they do this, because I think I'm just out of order on all of these, but it's okay. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So he talks to Londo, and Londo goes on his rant of, I want things to be the way they used to be. I want to sit back in our former glory. The good old days. He sounds like a crotchety old man yelling at clouds. But his when he first starts talking to Morden, he's like, "Leave me alone. I want you to leave me alone. Like, you're annoying me." And he says, "Oh, I can't leave until I get an answer." And I thought that was pretty interesting too, because like for the most part, like if somebody asks you what do you want, and you're like, "Oh, I want to go back to the good old days," do you think that's useful information for anything?
Specific
Character
enough.
development.
It depends on what you're calling the good old days. Um, because yeah, there might. Sorry, y'all. I'd be struggling. I don't ever really want to go back in time. But I can
Right.
remember when I was a child and like you didn't have to think about a whole lot of different stuff. So that can be considered good and old. But then there's like before capitalism and all this, you know, shit happened and people were living off of the land and, you know, were moving around with nature. That could be good. So it just depends on in what context they're referring.
Yeah. I mean, like, I hear a lot of people. I used to, because I still like a lot of like the old school fashion, like the 50s and rockabilly and the 40s dresses and stuff. And when I say that I like 50s and 40s fashion and jazz, I have to be specific, very, very specific, because I don't want to mix anything else about the 50s with modern times.
That
Just give
part.
me the
Yeah,
clothes.
Yeah.
But
that
some people,
part.
I love everything about the 50s, and I'm like, ugh.
Uh,
Like, no, just the dresses. Just give me some of the
Well,
dresses. Like, they
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're fine.
I'm so sorry. I got excited when you were talking about
Go
that
ahead,
because
go
I've
ahead.
been having like quite a wonderful experience with doing like gender role type task around my home. I'm in a space in my life right now where a lot of fulfillment is happening for me. And I've got all this energy to like clean and cook and do all kinds of stuff that I just generally am not interested in doing. And so to think about like the 50s housewife, that would usually just make me want to recoil and vomit a little. But I think if I'm getting the fulfillment that I need, like that is something that I have to do. I am seeing now is not really that big of a deal, but I know that that is not the reality for most of the women back then. So thankful, women's rights and all the things have marched for me to be where I am. Thank y'all. Appreciate you.
I definitely associate the term "good old days" with slavery and nothing else.
Yeah.
That's it. But I thought the response, "I can't go unless I get an answer," I was like, is he lying, or does he only need an answer from the males of the species? Because Dylan didn't give him an answer and he left.
Yeah, but Delin kicked him out. So when he went to Delin, she was like, "Okay, you are right." She was like, "Hey, you are going around asking everybody this question." And when she turns around and looks at him, she sees, like, we the audience see this symbol begin to form on her forehead. She turns away from him, covers her face, and she's like, "I'm tired. You need to go." And she turns around and looks at him, and like the shadows cover his face. His face darkens. She's like, "Get out. You need to get out." That was a very interesting response from Dylan. And go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying she doesn't answer the question at all.
We saw it was the movie where she had those little orbs. So she has some type of power. And then the triangle showing up on her head, them and their triangles.
Yeah.
That it we don't know what her power is. Is it scientific? Is it like there are psychics in different species?
Yes.
So maybe there was something there that repelled him, or that he recognized as like, I can't mess with this right now.
Right. He had a couple of moments like that in this episode too, right? But yeah, so hold on, I want to highlight all of this. Let's solidify. There's so much more going on with Delin than what they're showing us, right? We're suspicious of her. She's a security risk. She got magic triangles popping up on her forehead. She has these magic rings that we'll never see again. Way too much going on. And then later in episode, Morden approaches. Well, hold on. He doesn't really approach Ambassador Kosh. In fact, there was a point where you see him avoid Ambassador Kosh. He has this look like, oh man, not this guy. And he like, Ambassador Kosh goes by and Morden sneaks past him. But eventually they do come face to face, and he doesn't ask Kosh anything. Kosh tells him, like, they are not yours. You need to go. Like, leave. And that's also a very cryptic conversation to have too. I wanted to get Nita and Sunday's perspectives on that little bit of interaction that, what do you think that reveals?
Kosh is God. And
I got
the children of God. So you may not touch them, Shadow Man. They are covered in the blood of Jesus. Amen.
And I got nothing.
Okay.
But wasn't it a shadow that was used to kill something? What was the episode where they were all fighting over something, and he just came in and was like, "No, yeah, oh, it was the
they
were supposed to have something,
the immortality. It was the lady, the the Death Walker.
Because the shadow kind of looked like the ship that came in to kill the Death Walker. I mean, to me, it did. It looks similar.
Well, the ships that came to kill the Death Walker were the Vorlon ships.
Yeah.
They are kind of like organic, and they have like that. I don't know if they're tendrils, but they kind of look like tendrils. So it's definitely like a living vessel type of thing. So yeah, but yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah. My mind's going, if they're acquainted, maybe they're more like the Vulcans and Romulans, but they never like lost that knowledge of their connection. That's what I get from it. And my memory of the show is hazy.
Yeah. So we had those interactions with the main ambassadors on this show, and we got some very strong responses. But then, it turns out like when so there's another plot that's going on, right? And I don't want to get ahead of myself. So there's another plot that's going on. We mentioned that there were these raiders that are attacking cargo ships, and there's an attack that happens while all this other stuff is going on, and Sinclair sends out a wing, a squadron to go help out one of the ships being attacked, and he's like, these attacks were happening, closer to the station, and then suddenly this new attack is happening like a whole sector away, and so he's getting pretty suspicious, and then he's like, well, hold on, let's see what's going on. So they do a quick little search. There's like, well, what ships are here and what ships are about to leave. It turns out that the Centauri ship that Lord Kiro and Lady Ladera came in on is supposed to be leaving like 10 minutes. It's supposed to be leaving really, really soon. And he goes, somebody wants us to be defenseless. He's like, okay, let's send Garibaldi down. Garibaldi, I need you to go down to the docking bay with the security team. So, what is happening is Londo, Kiro, and Ladera, they're being held at gunpoint, and the eye is basically being stolen from them. And I like that whole situation made me very like suspicious. Well, I've seen this whole thing before, but now like looking at it now, I'm like, yeah, that is a perfect setup. Because the guy comes in, he's a human. He comes in, shoots the two guards, keep all of those important people alive, takes the eye, and then he's like, you know what? For insurance, I'm going to take you with me. He takes Lord Kiro. So all of that happens real fast, but that's like, hey, you know what? That's a kind of cool setup. He's got the item that they're trying to get, and he has the guy that hired him, and they get on the ship, and they're on their way out. Of course, Ladera doesn't know what's going on, and Londo doesn't know what's going on, but Sinclair has his suspicions. Any quick thoughts on that?
Like, so are you saying that Lord Kiro orchestrated his own kidnapping?
Yes.
Because he wanted to keep the eye.
That went right over my head.
Yeah.
Me too. I was just thinking, like, he got abducted. Like, that was pretty clear. Oh, I feel so sleep right now. Good job, Nita.
They kind of like emphasize so much that it's a part of my family, and I shouldn't have to give it to the king, to the emperor. And then the conversation that you know how sneaky those people are. They always planning for them to have whatever power is whatever they think they should be having, and obviously that was the power that he wanted. So it didn't surprise to me that he would try to find a way to keep the eye and then got greedy. You're
Yeah.
like, no, we can't give you all that.
Right. Right. Because on the ship, he was the guy was explaining like, yeah, you know what? Look, and he is right. Kiro's plan was not good. His whole thing was like, yes, I'm going to use the eye to claim the throne. It's like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, they're going to just pay attention, be like, oh, you got this very shiny gem and we're just going to give the throne to you. No. What will most likely have happened is he would have made his demands. They would have killed him and they probably would have destroyed the eye. So the guy that came, the
Or took
kidnapper,
it.
yeah. Or took it. But the kidnapper, he had a very good grasp on the whole situation. He was like, look, they're going to pay us for the eye and they're going to, we don't have enough firepower for them. What did he say? He said something like, we can't help you take over the government, but what they will do is they will pay your ransom. I'm like, that dude is, yeah, he knows how to pivot. He understands what the situation is. So he's got it set up for him to get paid twice for this, probably a third time for this one mission.
I mean, the Raiders are going to milk every penny they can get out of it.
Yeah, he's like the smartest person on this episode. Well, between him and Sinclair so far. And so he's like, take him to holding until you're useful. It's like, man, he's like, they'll only pay your ransom if they have proof of life. Now, let's imagine the Centauri Republic, one of their officials, one of their lords, a high-ranking politician, has been abducted on a mission to recover an artifact. If he makes his way back to Centauri, how do you think he's going to be received?
It depends on if he comes with the artifact.
I mean, even if he does come with the artifact, do you think they're going to be like celebrating him or?
I think they're going to I think he'll keep his status. If he came with the artifact without any issues, then he would, still be a lord, whatever, or seen as how he is because like you were able to do what we told you to do. But him showing up without it, they would be pissed. I think the ego of what can I get out of it. So if they can get their artifact back from him, they're okay.
What are your thoughts, Sunday?
Yeah, I agree that it doesn't matter like what means he used to achieve the goal. It seems very important to the entire species to have it, even though they all have their own like sinister and ulterior motives. Yeah, they're gonna be happy to have the artifact back in one piece. I mean, nothing's gonna stop them from constantly bickering amongst one another. So there is
Right.
that. Like they'll be happy that it came back, but still, give it back to the emperor and be happy where you are. Know your role and shut your mouth.
Right.
He's acting like if he brings it back, then he's going to get up in life. But I don't see any
Delusion.
evidence of his culture being appreciative of anything.
Right.
Delusion.
And that's what I'm saying. Like for Lord Kiro, if he makes it, he makes it out of. If let's say hypothetically, he makes it out of this situation alive. I don't like. He may not lose his position or his status, but he would lose all his influence. It's like, how did you let yourself get kidnapped by the guy that you hired? Like, and then then we had to pay for you to come back. Like, that's he would receive a lot of shame for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nita had to go. She's meeting her father's brother, her uncle. And
Oh
so
yeah.
they're doing that right now. So, but everything's all good. All right, so back to the show. They have this really cool battle. You get to see Sinclair really using some cool battle tactics, which I did appreciate that, at least for this season. You get to see and understand the battle tactics of Sinclair. Just to kind of spoil some stuff later on in the series, they don't go too much into detail with how these space battles go, and it does subtract from like the quality of them. But the reason why is because the story is so very well developed by then that you don't need them to go too much into detail. But I wish they would have kept it, but whatever.
He didn't
Basically,
go in.
no, go ahead.
He didn't go into danger today. This time,
No, he did not.
he actually,
He actually
yeah,
commanded.
did his actual job. What?
Well, hold
I
on.
feel
Wait,
like
wait,
that might be a
wait.
reflection of him finding purpose in that missing piece. Like him actually that's the metaphor of his shadow work. Him going
Yeah.
to Garibaldi
Okay.
to say there's something missing that I can't see. I don't call that a shadow. He's actually trying to look into it now. So when you're not looking into your shadows or your dark side, you do stupid shit. Oh, that's where like that toxic. That's where the toxicity comes from. It's
Yeah.
reckless for him to be responsible for all those people and that whole expensive station and just jump out into the line of fire. But now that he's actually looking into his pain and what's bothering him, he's feeling his responsibility and being more responsible.
Yes. I will have to make one correction though. Yes, he does ask for help. He's trying to get to the bottom of it, but he did have a gun pointed at him in this episode.
But he
But
didn't know
that
there was going to be a gun there.
true.
Usually he
Agreed.
knows that there's danger and he's like, I'm on it. He went to go tell them, no, we're going to hold out on your ship right now.
Yeah.
Like just wait over here because we're trying to keep you safe. There was no reason for him to believe there was danger. Like even when the guy had them at gunpoint, Malari and the aunt, and Sinclair still didn't know that there was a gun there. He's just like, y'all acting weird. He didn't run into danger. He just happened to be there.
Yeah. True. Good observation. So then Sinclair is making improvements in his life. He's had some breakthroughs. But so we kind of unravel that whole mystery. All of the raids were basically a diversion, so Lord Kiro could steal this eye thing with a poorly thought out plan to take over the empire. And how does it end? After the Raiders get beat and they're all like, "Hey, we need to go." What happens?
The shadows.
Yeah, the shadow craft comes out of jump space and slices that other ship in half. So down goes Kiro, down goes the kidnappers and the raiders, their special ship that could open up jump spaces. All of it's gone. And it's kind of like, well, geez, what was the point of this episode, right? Well, what ends up happening? Mr. Morden finds himself in Ambassador Malari's at the door of his quarters again, and he has a giant box in his hand, and he says, "I have a gift for you from friends that you didn't know you had." from friends you didn't know you had. And it is the eye, which is very interesting that they recovered it, because how would you be able to recover this jeweled, whatever it is, this gyroscope, from the destruction of that ship, right? They had to be very thorough about recovering that thing. He gives it to Ambassador Malari, and then he just disappears. Like he pulls the Batman thing. Malari turns his back. He turns back around. He's gone. And then something else strange happens. Malari's like, well, how let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a fleet of drinks. How can I get in touch with you? And you hear the voice, we'll get in touch with you, Malari. Let me ask y'all the question. If you heard a disembodied voice of a person who was just there and disappeared, how would you feel?
Like I need to burn my sage.
I feel like since he turned around and then he turned back and he was gone, kind of like Batman, you would assume like Batman that he's around the corner somewhere. Like, or hey, like
Yeah.
Batman would be like in a windowsill, like or next to the window,
hiding in
the
a shadow in the
building.
corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, but I guess from his perspective, like I told you I'd get you a drink. Shouldn't you show up? Like according to his people, like, and he's an
Yeah.
alcoholic, so
Yeah. Yep. So there we have it. We have some really cool things. Again, setting up the progress of the story. We met this new character, Mr. Morden. We met this new, I guess you would say, faction, these new characters, the Shadows, which we've only seen the ships. The ships cloak and decloak. They look really like organic. They have powerful weapons. They're in and out. You get a sense that there's something a little bit more happening in this universe that that the main characters just aren't aware of. At least it seems like most of them aren't anyway. And just kind of circling back around, Lady Ladira was correct. Lord Kira was killed by the Shadows. Her predictions were right. Her powers are great. Her predictions are valid. Listen to that woman, even though she is part of the Empire. We can't forget that, though.
right.
Yeah, there's a whole separate discussion about that. I'm just gonna put a little bookmark here. We will talk about the role of feminism down the down the road. So
Through the galaxy.
yeah.
I thought it was kind of the connection between. My brain made a connection between the God, what's his name? Jakar having the conversation with Commander Sinclair's ex about the ant
Oh yeah, that's right.
and how there's things that we don't understand. We don't understand the visitor coming to ask everybody questions. He's suspicious and he doesn't fit into their known universe.
Right.
He tries to. He presents as though, but he does not. And his him being able to get a hold of the eye the way he did, it's like we don't understand those things. So there's obviously something that happened there that we didn't understand, at least from my perspective. Which, like, the small things that I do remember about Ambassador Kosh kind of makes me think that all that's connected.
Yeah, it's all connected, and it's cool because you're starting to see some of the pieces. Well, they made it very obvious. You see the pieces that are coming together, the connections, or like the potential connections between the different ambassadors. and then the connection between the ambassadors and Sinclair, and then all of the different things that are happening in the backstory. So we've got a lot of threads that are finally coming together that are weaving this really cool story. And here we are, 13 episodes in.
Yay, we did it.
Well, and we're still in season 1. So this is the thing about all of this. This is this is in an era where TV shows had to last 20 to 22 weeks, right? Half a year. Also, the ratings were super important. So, like, if your ratings weren't great, then you ended up on a different TV channel. Which did happen to Babylon 5. It was like it would like bounce around channels, and so it was hard to keep up with the story because it was serialized instead of episodic, which was different for the time. Everything for the most part, like TV shows were like, hey, it doesn't matter what episode you're on, you should be able to follow the story that you see because each episode is self-contained. But this one is telling a much larger story, which when it came out, when I started to really catch up with it, I was in love with it. And this is one of those episodes that kind of hooked me. So, with all of that, what are some of your overall thoughts on everything that so far that we were able to see with this episode?
I'm just still like surprised about Lord Kiro orchestrating his own kidnapping. Was the eye mentioned in another episode? Because I'm really curious about like the components and why it's such a important piece of symbolism.
I don't recall if it was. I don't think it was mentioned in any other episode. The closest thing that I can think of is, remember that one episode where they were exploring all the different religions. When they were looking at the Centauri, they were surrounded by statues and ornaments, and so them being an ancient, like, imperialistic civilization, they very much like memorialized their power and in relics and in like these different symbols. And so if we look at like parallels to our world, this is, looking at ancient Egypt or the Greeks or the Romans. You would build statues to people who were powerful people, like the Colossus, right? The Colosseum, what are those? The pyramid, those big giant triangle thingies. And so they like we said before, they would put so much importance in things that symbolized power, so people could remember them forever, because that's what they thought would help them achieve immortality.
There's so many.
Go ahead.
There's so many Earth cultures that actually use eyes as the symbol. We have the Illuminati. We have the Egyptian Eye of Ra. What was the other one that I was thinking about? The chakra symbol for the eye. Yeah, eyes are very important.
Yeah.
What was it? There was some cultures in South in the Americas before colonization that would like pull out people's eyes to represent like the sun and the moon before they did stuff. I don't want to be specific because I don't have that specific. A lot of people don't. It's like just people who study it don't have the specifics. Certain organs were always so important, and usually the eye was always one of those important symbols for a lot of cultures. And a lot of the Northern American indigenous people, their art had like the eyes were so emphasized and detailed because they're so important.
Yeah. And it's but and again, it's like you have ways that people would create symbols for power. For the Centauri, it's about imperial power, but I think for our ancient cultures here, it's like specific power of the best I can think of is like maybe like magic or connections to the spirit world, things like that.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
eye is the window to the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and you will see like in this show there are other alien cultures that do put importance on certain symbols, but it'll come up like the relics are important. Oh, one more thing that came to mind, like and they even talk about it in this series, the Holy Grail. That's a symbol of power.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
which
it's
I
kind
never.
of jeweled like people would think the Holy Grail is. The eye was jeweled in a similar way. Like the style was similar.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why the '90s was so obsessed with the Holy Grail, but
Oh
I feel like
yeah.
every TV show had a Holy Grail episode. Every TV show had a Holy Grail and then an alien episode.
hmm And there were always the Nazis.
There's always
They were,
Nazis.
yeah. And that was something that they were doing too. Like they always connected the Nazis to looking for the Holy Grail because they thought it would get them power.
Yep.
Or either they just said power. Let's try to get the Nazis to get the power, obviously.
Yeah. Sunday, what are your thoughts on this episode? I think you're on mute. You're on mute. Still muted.
My
There you go.
apologies. My apologies. I it has me excited for upcoming episodes to be getting, closer to the juice. Like you guys were saying, and figuring out what's really going on with that triangle on her head. It's exciting, and when I say that, it's like congratulations, we did the thing. Like to have 13, like more than a dozen recordings done, and we're being consistent and showing up for each other to do this is what I am speaking towards. So I'm really appreciating the space with you guys.
Nice. I'm excited to be able to share it with y'all, the first timers, because again, just discovering this as a teen was like it was like finding a treasure. What are your final thoughts, Mel?
I do really enjoy meeting up like this and discussing the show. My memory of the show when I was a kid is very, very vague. I don't think I was truly paying attention. Um, like it was my dad was watching it and I happened to be around and sometimes he'd be like, sit down, look at this. So um as a author now in writing sci-fi myself, it's a lot. It's very educational for me to go through and look at all this stuff. And I love anthropology. So all of the parts of culture that they throw in there and use um what is it, metaphors, along with the science, of course. It's
Mm,
just exciting for me.
yeah. The thing the thing about the science in Babylon 5, and I think you pointed this out before. Like they do try to keep certain things grounded, but still most of it is still on the fantasy side of things. Like, you have a prophet. Like, how does she see the future? Like, how does that
Mhm.
work? Right? Or the telepaths. Like, how does that work? You know?
I think
Yeah.
they're slightly consistent so far about the very, very soft science being metaphors for philosophies and thought processes. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So anything that doesn't make sense scientifically always is a just a very somewhat sciencey way of explaining something that's not concrete.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of feel like they get a little bit more specific when Dr. Franklin's involved.
Hmm.
The fact that the station is like this giant rotating thing to simulate gravity, you know, that all is like part of the world building. So that's kind of cool. And
Yeah.
I think that, you know, the way that they embellish on the science is cool
Yeah.
because they don't make the way that they approach it super obvious. You know, it's not always going to feel like Star Wars. It's not always going to feel like Star Trek. But the way that they, you know, the way they embellish on things serves the story pretty well. And you're like, yeah, that would be kind of cool. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, that's, you know, I get that.
Hmm. It's
So,
kind of like the guy who got killed by the shadows today. Like
yeah.
he was obsessed with trying to get power so much so that he was being irrational about it. And his irrationality on how he was going to gain power end up being his demise. It was
Yes.
his shadows that he that killed him.
Yep.
So I felt like I had to connect that whole metaphorical part with the science part of the ship being a weird shadow looking thing.
And then lastly, I just have to make a note that Morden didn't ask Kira what he wanted. He didn't ask him nothing at all. And so that kind of points to you like what or who Morden thinks is important or who the shadows think are important.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all very much for joining us on this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. We are on several podcast platforms. You should definitely go check us out. Check us out on YouTube also. I want to start doing some YouTube things. Look, I got some off time coming up, so I wanted to kind of start using that. Maybe we can do some lives on there. But once we get all that sorted out, we'll definitely update everyone. Like, hey, well, you can catch us when we do this, when we do our live streams. Other than that, just be sure to like, follow, and share. Invite your friends to have these discussions with us. Mel is was it moderating a Facebook page, Voices in
Yeah.
Hyperspace. The
Yes.
conversations can continue there.
Hmm. And you can post on there, and I will approve them if it's
Yes.
sci-fi related.
Yeah, you've been getting some spammy posts.
Yeah. I changed the settings. Yeah. So now I have to approve them. But that means I get to see all of them, and when I approve them, I will be commenting on them.
Nice. Yes. Yeah. I briefly, well, I reactivated my Facebook, so I'm going to be trying to be active on there. I will
I
do my best to tolerate it.
saw.
Huh?
We're friends.
Yes, we are friends. I went and sought you out to friend you, Nita. You're my friend now. It's official. We're Facebook official.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh. All right. So, go be sure to check us out now on Facebook. Voices in Hyperspace. You can follow me, Legendary Black Lion, still on Instagram and TikTok, Threads, and I refuse to call it X. It's still Twitter, and so follow me there, and we can continue to have some of these conversations there.
This is Nita Painter. I am Nita Painter on all platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. What's the other thing? Instagram, OnlyFans. Just kidding.
I was gonna say, you got an
They
OnlyFans?
wouldn't let me get an OnlyFans account. They're like, it has to be you, and I'm just like, that is definitely me. Like, I'm just covered in paint, but I'm having a hard time with that. But I will be getting some sort of adult content account for my adult content, that will still be Nita Painter. The end.
I am Mel Asylum. You can find me at Mel's Rebellion on most platforms: TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Clapper. I have a Clapper for some
What's
reason.
that?
That
It's
sounds like adult
TikTok.
content too.
No,
What
it's
is
like-
that?
It's like TikTok, but for like older people. Apparently, that's what it was advertised as.
Oh,
So it's like older millennials and Xers. There's a lot of like car accidents and fishing and food. I actually searched for
Hold
like
on.
goth stuff. I searched for sci-fi and goth stuff, and I barely got anything. So I'm mostly only posting my galactic teas on there and some of my makeup stuff. So
car accident and fishing.
there are so
Okay.
many. People are like recording people getting into car accidents, or like after the accident, people are like trying to fight each other and stuff. There's so many fights on there for some reason.
Oh man,
Very wholesome.
the internet
Yeah.
is messy. Yeah. And Sunday.
This is Sunday, and you can find me in a dog park. Good night.
Yeah. All right. Thank y'all for joining us, and we will catch y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.